against Western Kentucky at 4-3. Now, the Big 12. Start with West Virginia at Tech, both 3-3 overall in Lubbock. The Red Raiders host the Mountaineers.
I don't see it. West Virginia team rattling off a bunch of wins in a row. That they're good on offense. They've got problems on that defense. We saw it last week. I think Tech possibly rolling out 3 quarterbacks tomorrow is going to be too much. Plus, it's in Lubbock. That's a really tough place to play. Joe McGuire has that fan base fired up. It's going to be loud. It's going to be crazy. And Tech just plays games where they don't go away even when they're trailing. But I see them probably leading, maybe not wire to wire for the most of this one. I think Tech wins this one.
Yeah, I don't think having 3 quarterbacks to roll out is necessarily an advantage, Paul.
Yeah.
I mean, all due respect, but I think that kind of tells you that either you've done the most masterful job of having 3 legitimate starting quarterbacks, which, I mean, I guess they have legit 3 starting quarterbacks, but I think that's because they don't really have a 1 starting quarterback. Tyler Shuck was supposed to be the guy. He got hurt. Donovan Smith, then the guy. He was very up and down. Then he got hurt. Baron Morton, then he's the guy because he has to be, and then he got a little dinged up, but he's been pretty good, and some people think that he's the future. I don't know. I don't think they know who their quarterback is. I think now we'll start to find out who their quarterback actually is. So I don't know if that's a positive or a negative, but I guess the positive is that if one guy doesn't work, then you know you got 2 others that you can go to and so on. I'm going Tech just simply because this is in Lubbock. If this was in Morgantown, I would not pick them. I don't think that they're very good on the road, as has been proven. They're not as good on the road. But they are, if you go look at their wins, they are winning at home. And West Virginia, I liked what they did against Baylor. I still feel like a lot of that was created by Baylor, kind of self-inflicted errors, but I do give West Virginia credit, like for forcing some things. Like Blake Shapen fumbled from hitting his, lineman, but hey, he was being pressured. So, roundabout way, you give West Virginia credit for that. So I think that they could have maybe transferred some of that energy from that Baylor win if this was in Morgantown. But since it's in Lubbock, I'm going with Texas Tech.
By the way, the Blake Shapen fumble that looked like he just bumped it. There was a really good angle where West Virginia had a pass rusher that actually kind of got on his elbow.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
well,
so
never saw that.
What looked like, and for the longest of time, and I think a couple of 3 days later, somebody sent me a different angle, and it does look like he came back. So give West Virginia credit, much more credit than we probably did for forcing that fumble, but you have to protect the ball in the pocket. I'll take Texas Tech at home. The 3 quarterbacks, I mean, all 3 could start at a lot of schools around the country. It's a good thing to have, but it's also a negative because you've had to use them because of Shuck being hurt early in the year. Now, Kansas State, TCU, both teams unbeaten in the Big 12. TCU's been explosive. Kansas State has been methodical. That game, Fort Worth, TCU gets back-to-back games. They had Oklahoma at home, and they get Oklahoma State at home. And now they get Kansas State at home.
I'm kind of confused. This game is confusing to me in the fact that you want to say that the same thing kind of happened when we said earlier with Kansas State and Oklahoma, but Kansas State proved that wrong. Of when we looked at Oklahoma right then, we didn't think that their worst offense was worse than Kansas State's best at that point, and then everything's gotten flipped on its ear since then. But TCU was just so good on offense, and even last week where they sputtered a little bit at times, I just think that they can score enough points and keep Kansas State out of the end zone enough to where they win the game. But Kansas State can make things really interesting and with the way that they've been playing. I'm picking TCU, but I don't. It's one of the ones I'm the least confident about because
we say that a lot in the Big 12, don't we?
But yeah, I just don't like.
I feel that way about West Virginia and Tech. I almost picked West Virginia. I don't think Tech's that much better than West Virginia. I don't even know if they are better than West Virginia, but it's in Lubbock. I mean, like I said a second ago, that's the only reason I'm picking them to win that game. There's nothing about the Red Raiders that makes me go like, yeah, they're just so much better than the Mountaineers. So I know West Virginia fans probably feel like they always get picked against, but it's just kind of the situation that they're, in with this one being on the road. But this game, to me, I'm going TCU. They won 3 straight top 25 games. I don't know why Kansas State's going to be that much bigger of a deal for them to have to handle. They're at home in Fort Worth again. I think that they're cruising at the moment. I think K-State's fully capable of winning this game. That's why the spread's not very much, but I think that TCU is going to stop the run a little bit. And I think if you start getting into a game where you got to trade scores, I like TCU to be able to get in the end zone or put up points a lot more than I like K-State's ability to do that on a regular basis. Again, though, this is a coin flip type of a game, really. But, being on the streak that they're on, having the confidence they did, even having a tough go of things last week and then going and rallying in the second half. I just think that they're kind of that team right now that's finding a way. And I think being at home and all those things combined, give me the Horned Frogs tomorrow.
Yep. TCU 6-0, K-State 5-1. TCU is the win against Oklahoma State, which was impressive. And the fact that they didn't just okay, we're out of time. They kept fighting back. And at the end, it looked like Oklahoma State was the one that was out of gas. Texas, 5-2, on the verge of bowl eligibility, which is never taken for granted. And Oklahoma State with the loss after losing in Fort Worth home against Texas. If we knew Spencer Sanders was 100%, would it change your mind?
Yes, it would. I would.
Yeah, it would, actually.
Yeah, it would, because I would lean, if he was 100% healthy, which he was not at the end of the game last week, and it certainly cost Oklahoma State. I don't know that he is going into this game. I know that Texas has been playing really well. I know that Stillwater's a really tough place to play. I know that this conglomeration of Texas players has not experienced that at full throat yet, so I know that that's going to be hard, but the fact that Gunnar Gundy might have to play for stretches of this game if Spencer Sanders isn't healthy, or Spencer Sanders may not play at all, and we're not. Soki, you asked before if I've heard anything, and I said I don't think we will until Gunnar Gundy goes out there and takes a snap for Oklahoma State, whether Spencer Sanders is necessarily healthy or not, because he's going to try to play that as close to the chest as he can. So knowing that, I'm picking Texas here because I don't really know what kind of condition Spencer Sanders is in, and even if he plays, I saw what happened last week, and he wasn't really Spencer Sanders.
I think Texas is a steadily improving team, and I think they're good enough to be a top 25 type team. I'm not sure about playoff or anything like that, but I do think that they are a Big 12 contender at this point in time. But I look at their schedule and I don't see any top 25 wins. I see ones that are counted as wins even though they were losses because we want to blame the officials or whatever, or an injury or whatever we want to do there. And I understand why. They almost beat Alabama, and if Quinn Ewers was healthy and all that, but actual facts of actual results of actual official rulings say that they have not beaten a top 25 team yet. So I would be a little bit leery about them going and beating a nearly top 10 Oak State and Stillwater if Spencer Sanders was healthy. That would give me some pause. But given that the last time we saw him, Oklahoma State's basically getting shut out and allowing TCU to come roaring back and win that game last week because the offense wasn't able to function as well. That makes me a little bit leery of saying, oh, yeah, sure, they'll just score points with Gunnar Gundy. I don't have that kind of faith right now. I would need to see a lot more than I've seen at this point. So, this all comes down to Spencer Sanders for me. And so I give Texas the slight edge to go and get a win. I think they're playing with a lot of confidence, and I think that maybe last week was a little bit of a wake-up call in that they didn't just show up and beat Iowa State and move on. They had to scrap for that one. And so if there was any sort of feeling that they're, Texas is back and we're just going to roll through this bad boy. And I think Iowa State kind of woke them up last week and said, no, this is still going to be a struggle. And you can't just, dance your way without, carefree to the championship game. So I think maybe that kind of focus them more, and mostly the Spencer Sanders thing is why I'm picking Texas.
By the way, back to the West Virginia game in Lubbock, C.J. Donaldson should be back this week.
Yep,
and he should. Mathis and Donaldson is a nice little 1-2 punch with what they have. If they can turn that into a game where they slow the game down a little bit, not that they can't score points, 43 against Baylor. And I don't know what to think about Oklahoma State. Texas and Oklahoma State, and Gundy's had their number, but Texas has had some success in Stillwater. I don't know the latest history on it. I just think right now, because of the question mark, and Oklahoma State coming off maybe a little bit of a hangover after the way they fell back after leading that game by 14, maybe they got a little groggy. Good thing for them, they're probably at home. And then the game that we'll have a pregame tomorrow, 9 o'clock, Baylor in Kansas. 11 o'clock or just after that, the kickoff, Baylor, KU for the homecoming. And again, another team in the Big 12. It appears as if Blake Shapen's fine because he was back at practice. Curtis Quillen with that note based on Dave Aranda's TV show. Kansas with Bean. And they're going to put up some points. I saw something on the board. Somebody made a prediction. They're like, I can't imagine 48-17 or whatever. I think Kansas is going to score a lot of points, and Baylor better be in the mode they were at in Morgantown offensively.
Yeah, I think that with Blake Shapen playing, this changes what I thought about this game almost completely. So since Shapen's going to play, I think Baylor will win the game. I don't think it's going to be easy, and I don't think the defense is all of a sudden going to be 2021 after a week. I think that they've got problems that are bigger than just a 1 week fix. It might be a couple of things that they need to change and maybe even moving some guys around, which will take some time to adjust to. But yeah, I think Kansas is going to be, pretty prolific on offense, and they're going to do some things. Jason Bean turns the ball over a little bit more than Jalen Daniels does. So maybe Baylor can take advantage of that, even though that's not been a big thing for them this year like it was in the last couple of years. But I think Baylor wins this one. I think they probably win it a little more comfortably than I even put on the site. But Kansas is scrappers, and they're still one game away from bowl eligibility and have been that way for a couple weeks. So don't undersell the fact that might be a little extra motivation to finally just get that done so they can take it off their plate.
I'm going Baylor, and this might be the game I have the most confidence in. So if they don't win this one, then I'm not picking them to win a game the rest of the way. I'll tell you right now, I don't care if it's home or away. If they don't win this game, being double-digit favorites at home, homecoming, you just got your quarterback back healthy. The other team doesn't have their quarterback healthy. I just don't know how you possibly lose this game other than you just do what you did last week or that you've done multiple times and you screw up at all the wrong times, which is entirely possible. And if they do that, then it's going to be a real miserable day at McLean tomorrow because I think everybody's kind of tired of seeing, the untimely miscues and just how much they hurt themselves at certain moments. So if they can't, after a week and a half of hearing about how bad that loss in Morgantown was and watching that tape and realizing why that loss was bad was not bad officiating or just some a asteroid fell from the sky and screwed your offense up. There was some bad luck in that game, but it was entirely fixable and entirely winnable still, even with what West Virginia did that you were unable to defend. All due credit to the Mountaineers. So all those things considered, back at home and all that, they've got to win this game. And if they don't, then like I said, I won't be picking them in anymore probably the rest of the way because I won't see how you could justify that, quite frankly, if they're not able to win with this setup. And that's nothing against Kansas. I do think they'll come in and score some points, but I think, when you're a team that gives up nearly 400 yards and you're losing 52-42, Baylor, you can play a little bit better defense than that, right? I would hope so, especially after last week. Maybe your guys have some pride to, tackle somebody, to pressure the quarterback, to do the things that you haven't done for a while now. This to me is, and I've probably said it a couple times already this year, so this is the final time you'll hear me say this. This is a gut check for this football team. If they want to go a certain way, tomorrow is the day that they decide which direction the rest of the season is going to go, in my opinion. So
we're saying that about them playing. That's how things have changed because the unknown with Kansas because of what they do now on offense. But also because you're right, Craig. 3-3, you go 3-4 with 2 Big 12 losses at home, and what you still have to do on the road at Lubbock, Norman, UT.
And then your 2 home games, TCU and K-State.
Yeah, 2 of the top teams right now in the conference.
What game you winning?
Yeah.
Well,
it's true. And by the way, there have been a lot of things said about the defense. Don't think that the coaches haven't said pretty much the same thing, and even some of the players. So figure it out, gut check, and let's see what happens. But if you can't get to the quarterback, you're not going to change that up in a week and a half unless you come up with some sort of a scheme that allows people to get free. And they don't have Jalen Petrie and they don't have Terrell Bernard out there trying to get that done. Now, do they have somebody near that? We'll figure it out. We'll see what happens. Yeah. Bean, by the way, is a guy that if you let him getting around, he can run for 100 yards in a game. He's that good.
Sure he could. I don't think he's Jalen Daniels, though. If Jalen Daniels was playing in this game and was healthy, then maybe my pick would be different. But all things considered, I'm going Baylor here. But every pick we just made, I could easily see the other team winning that game. I could see Oklahoma State winning. I could see Kansas winning. Every single game I could see the opposite result, and I would not be totally surprised by that in any way, shape, or form. That's why the Big 12 is an interesting league this year.
Every